Folklore, unexplained mysteries, paranormal events. This is Supernatural Charlotte. Car trouble in the middle of the night. A young woman awaits her husband's return with help near a railway in Statesville, North Carolina. A train makes its way toward the looming bridge ahead. The light approaches, the sound of the engine churns, then suddenly it jumps the tracks, plummeting into the creek below. It's August 17th, 1941, exactly 50 years to the hour since a deadly train derailment off that same Bostians-bridge. And as legend has it, what the woman witnessed was the ghost train of Iredell County.
The legend of the Bostian-bridge ghost goes back to an original train wreck that happened in Statesville, North Carolina on August 27, 1891. Around 2:30 in the morning, a Western North Carolina passenger train started to go across the Bostian Bridge. It derailed. The passenger cars, they all fell and landed into what is called Third Creek. Passengers that crawled out reported that it was dead silent. Then slowly they began to hear people crying and moaning and screaming for help. The wreck itself killed 22 of the 52 passengers on board immediately. Around 1970, an author named Nancy Roberts wrote about the Boston train wreck in one of her folklore books, and she recounted the legend of the ghost train.
In 1941, 50 years to the day from the anniversary, a woman and her husband were traveling home. They had car trouble, so the man left his wife at the car to go get help, and the woman heard a train coming. And she heard a train crash, and she saw it. And she saw the train come off of the bridge, and she heard the screams, and it just completely traumatized her.
She looks around, and there's a man standing beside her, and he's dressed in a conductor's uniform, and he's holding a watch. And he says to her that the train is running a little bit late, and then he disappears. The woman goes running to tell her husband and to get help. They go to the depot in Statesville. They are told there was no train had passed in the last few minutes. And when they go back, of course, there's nothing there.
There weren't any reports of a train crash that day, but somebody told them that exactly 50 years before that, a terrible train crash had happened. And it said that the woman screamed and fainted after that. And so she saw a ghost train.
Researchers have looked to find if there was any mention of the ghost train in 1941, but we've never been able to find any mention of a ghost train prior to 1970.
We've gone up and investigated that area. What we did was pointed a camera at the tracks, put some candles down on the track. It was a quiet night, still night, hot, humid August, not air blowing at all. And all of a sudden, about 3 o'clock in the morning, this huge rush of wind came down the track enough to blow out the candles. But those same candles had been going the whole time that we were there until that one instance when this rush of wind came by. It almost felt like a train.
There is a deep sense of sadness up there. You know, when there was analog, you can record your sound like what we're doing with Zoom. And so it's being recorded on the rust oxide of the tape. Our thoughts, our impressions are a subtle form of electricity, if you will. And when we project our energies outward, you don't necessarily need to project onto rust oxide to have a recording play over and over and over and over again. So when this haunting takes place, or when people sense the sadness, or they hear the train horn, or they hear the crashing sounds, what they're doing is they're sensitive enough to pick up on the recorded memory of that tragic event.
There was an accident a few years ago where a man from Charlotte with a paranormal group was out at the bridge. Sometime during the morning, they decided to walk out on the bridge. a man and his girlfriend. That bridge is still used by trains today. Unfortunately, they were about halfway across when the train came. The train is right behind them, and he shoves his girlfriend off the side of the bridge. He gets knocked off the bridge by the train, and he's killed.
About a year before Chris Kaiser died, he called me up. I remember telling him, stay off the tracks. We heard the news, and I thought, oh my God, Chris, you're now part of the legacy of the train tracks.
At 3 a.m., a crossing arm on the still active railway drops. Malfunction? Or is it making way for the ghost train as it retraces its fateful journey across Bostians-bridge? Dangerous and deadly. If you want to catch a glimpse of the paranormal, stay off the tracks at all costs. Don't miss the final season of Supernatural Thursdays at 8 on WCCB, Charlotte's CW.